Hello friends, this is Akul Mike Live and I am Chandrakant. Today we will discuss about how India became India as we know it today. And we all know that there are 28 states and multiple union territories, but we got independence in 1947, and then soon after that there was a big unification exercise where we have to do so many things. And the founding fathers of our nation had wisdom and foresight to unify India. And this is exactly what we will discuss in our program today. But friends, let me also tell you that please stick around in this discussion till the end, because at the end of this video, we will tell you how you can actually win your free gift, an Akul Mac memorabilia. So stick around. Let's now begin our discussion without further ado. Friends, let me welcome our guest today. His name is Mr. Jeet Bhatt. He is a very senior, very popular advocate practicing in Ahmedabad High Court, and he joins us from Ahmedabad. The topic of discussion is the unification of India, because lately we have been hearing about federalism, centralism, and those kind of things in the news. So I think Jeet is the best person to clarify all this for us. So let me present Jeet without further ado.
Hello, Chandrakant. Thank you for having me on this show and looking forward for this discussion of unification of India today with you.
Welcome, Jeet. In fact, there are so many states and there are so many union territories. India looks like much bigger than European Union, and in terms of population, it is EU and America put together is into one country. So we call it one country. Yet we have state governments, and there are different laws in different states, even though they follow unified law of India. So I think you can explain, what this federalism means, how India became India after unification, and you know, where we are going from here, from this point.
Yes, Chandrakant, absolutely. As you said, India is US and EU put together. Today, India has 28 states and 8 union territories, and one union territory adding being that of Jammu and Kashmir. Earlier, we had 29 states and 7 union territories, but now it is 28 states and 8 union. So, India is certainly a union that is Bharat, is the union of states. These 28 states and 8 union territories is what India, that is Bharat. Now, these 28 states and 8 union territories are today, but that is not what it looked like in 1947 when India got independence. And certainly, it is unity in diversity, but this unity in diversity is tremendous and a huge, a very large area and diverse population. Now, how it came to be unified is a very interesting story and one of the most important constitutional developments at the time of attaining freedom. So India attained freedom, as we know, on 15th August 1947. But by that, India became a dominion bereft of the paramountcy of the British Empire. But this was constituted by way of an Indian Independence Act of 1947, enacted on 3rd of June 1947. Now, by way of that act, two dominions came into existence, that is India and Pakistan. So India and Pakistan were became independent on 15th August by way of this Independence Act of 1947. Now, under that act, the British paramountcy was to lapse. So the British were to leave, the paramountcy was to lapse. But let me just briefly point out what was this paramountcy and how the British had control over the entire subcontinent. Because of an act of 1858, which is known as the Act of the Better Government of India. Now, the British had came earlier, but they started conquering the different areas of our country, which were governed by different rules. In 1958, this Act of Better Government, wherein Queen Victoria made it clear that the government would respect the rights, dignity, and honor of native princes, and the policy of annexation, which was vigorously pursued by Lord Dalhousie, would be stopped, and the princely states would be given their perpetuity. So therefore, these princely states were continued to have their sovereign status to rule their subjects, but the paramountcy was with the British Empire. So the British Empire had important decisions which it could make and impose upon the state governments. But otherwise, with regards to day-to-day affairs and management, the states and the princely rulers were independent. The British had by that time occupied around 50% of what India is today, and it was governed by the provinces. Like we know, Bombay, Calcutta, Madras were the provinces, and also central provinces area like Delhi, Ajmer, and also Coorg. So basically, 50% by 1947 of today's India was under the British Empire, and the remaining 50% was governed by the princely states. So therefore, when 1947 Act came, the 50% of India which was governed by the British became independent immediately. But with respect to the remaining 50% of the princely state, the Independence Act provided that those princely state would have the authority to either choose to join the dominion of India or to join the dominion of Pakistan, or also to remain an independent sovereign state. So these three options were given to each princely state, and there were 562 princely states at that time in India. So with respect to this Independence Act, these states had to choose. Now there were several rulers, and this was a big problem to convince them to join or to accede to the dominion of India. And to do that, the dominion of India constituted a Ministry of State under the hands of Sardar Patel. And as we know, Sardar Patel had the prominent role to unify the entire country and to convince these rulers to accede to India. And this was done in a tremendous manner with great statesmanship, as we know today, of Sardar Patel. And I would like to quote an observation of Justice Hegde of Supreme Court, who observed in one of the very landmark judgments of 1917 Privy Purse case that Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, with his political sagacity and pragmatic approach, availing himself of the cooperation of Lord Mountbatten and the assistance of his energetic and tactful secretary V.P. Menon, first persuaded practically all the rulers to accede to India on three subjects, that is defense, external affairs, and communications, and thereafter stage by stage drew them closer to the dominion of India and finally persuaded them to merge with the dominion of India. All this was done in the course of about 2 years, a feat unparalleled in history. The saga of the integration of the Indian states into the dominion of India will remain the most exciting and most glorious chapter in the history of our country. So certainly, this is a remarkable feat achieved by Sardar Patel and his team within a period of 2 years. Now, how this was done was by way of signing the instrument of accessions and mergers. So these rulers were made initially to give up only three things to the central government. Now, as you spoke about federalism means that there is a balance between a central government and a state government, where the central government is neither too strong nor too weak, because we have seen, experience has shown, there are too strong a central government becomes sometimes a tyrant government, whereas a too weak a central government would not be able to withstand. Now, having so many states, a central government which has control over important aspects of lawmaking, and also the state governments have their own independence and sovereign functions which they have to undertake. So initially, the three things which were given to the central government were defense, external affairs, and communication. The rest of the entire body of administration was with the state government. And step by step, the states were then convinced to exceed their rulership and to become part of the union government. Now, this was done by way of instruments of accession and instruments of merger. So, in order to convince them, there was an arrangement of a privy purse and some privileges and rights which were given to these 562 rulers. Now, privy purse was an amount which is also known as a quid pro quo, which was given to rulers in return for handing over to the dominion of India their states unconditionally and forever. So, if I may just briefly give you the instrument of merger, which was signed by several of these rulers, in fact, most of these rulers, were that Article 1 of the agreement provided that the Raja of the state ceded to the Dominion government full and exclusive authority, jurisdiction, and power, and for an relation to the governance of the state, and agreed to transfer the administration of the state to Dominion government by 1st of January 1948. So the Dominion government was competent to exercise its power and authority and jurisdiction over the rule. Second article provided that the Raja was entitled to receive from the revenues of the state annually the privy purse a certain sum of money, which was to cover his expenses and his family's expenses. So these were the two important conditions which were found in each of these merger agreements. Now I may give you the sum. The total expenses of this privy purse came to an amount of rupees 58 crores annually, which was to be paid to these rulers forever. And the rulers were entitled to choose their gadi as per their customs and their laws. So that also was a condition in the merger agreement. Now, with respect to these rulers, the ruler of Bhopal, who was a big ruler at that time, was to get a sum of rupees 11 lakhs per annum as privy purse, and this amount was free of all taxes. The Nizam of Hyderabad. Now, Hyderabad was also an interesting case because three states at the time of even after the commencement of the constitution, before the commencement of the constitution, but after independence, did not merge, were Mysore, Hyderabad, and Jammu and Kashmir. But that we can deal with in some other date. But today, let us focus on what happened afterwards. The Nizam of Hyderabad was to get an amount of rupees 50 lakhs free of tax per year as his privy purse. Similarly, the Maharaja of Mysore was to receive a sum of rupees 20 lakhs free of all taxes. So these were the privy purses which amounted to rupees 58 crores per annum. Now, they were also entitled to certain other privileges and their salutes, etc., their personal properties they were entitled to keep. But rest, everything, their rule was over and they had given up to the Dominion of India. Now, with respect to Junagadh is a very interesting case because Junagadh is a part of Gujarat, today Gujarat, but at that time it was the state of Kathiawar. And Gujarat was constituted today on 1st May 1960. It became a separate state, but before it was divided into state of Bombay. And at that time, it was the United States of Kathiawar, which had this princely state of Junagadh, which was governed by the Nawab, known as the Mahabat Khan Rasul Khan, a Nawab of Junagadh. Now, Junagadh lies in the western area of the state of Gujarat, wherein lies on the southwest lies the Arabian Sea. Now, it had no contiguity with Pakistan by land, and the distance to Karachi from Junagadh was by sea around 300 miles. 80% of the population of Junagadh were Hindus, and only the Nawab was a Muslim, and he had some proximity with Pakistan. And as per the Independence Act, he was free to choose whether to stay with India, to stay with Pakistan, or to become independent. On 15th August, till 15th August, he was saying that he will join with the Dominion of India, and he is together with the United States of Kathiawar, the other princely states. But on 15th August 1947, he announced his decision to accede to the Dominion of Pakistan. And this was a terrible surprise because they had already signed the instrument of accession with Pakistan. And Junagadh was about to be taken over as a province of Pakistan, despite there being no contiguity with Pakistan. In fact, till date, Pakistan in its map shows Junagadh as part of its territory. But that is very surprising because this dispute has been over since 1948, and I will show you how, and some interesting events that happened at that time. So, at that time, Junagadh acceding to Pakistan created a huge explosion of law and order situation in Kathiawar because 80% of the population were Hindus. Now, there were two other tiny rules near in Junagadh, wherein there was a Sheikh of Mangrol and the Khan of state. Yes, where also the the Junagadh army put their troops there so that they may not exceed with India. And they were trying to create pressure on nearby bordering rulers that they should accede to Pakistan. Now, this was seen as a act of aggression by Junagadh, and therefore Sardar Patel had deployed troops in Mangrol uh, and some areas of Kathiawar, so that this act of transgression may not happen, that other states may also go away with Pakistan. So thereafter, the entire supply of fuel, coal, and also trade with Junagadh was cut. The law and order situation had so worsened that the people wanted to join and accede in India, but the ruler had acceded to Pakistan. And therefore, ultimately, creating such a situation, the ruler felt that there is trouble in the state, and he would not be able to manage. So he fled from Junagadh and flew to Pakistan in Karachi. Now he left the entire administration to his diwan, and his diwan, under pressure, ultimately had to succumb because the people were already creating law and order situation, and there was going to be a revolt. So under such situation, and also the army being placed in the neighboring borders, Junagadh had no other option. The diwan had to succumb to the pressure, and he ultimately wrote to the central government, the Dominion of India, saying that you help us out of this situation and you intervene. And it is at that time that the central government took over the administration. And ultimately, on 12th of February 1948, there was a plebiscite, a referendum, which happened with Junagadh. Yes, on 20th February 1948, a plebiscite happened at Junagadh and also in Manavdar, Babariawad, and Mangrol, wherein 2,01,400 were the registered voters, out of it which 1,90,000 voted, and only 91 cast their vote in favor of accession to Pakistan. So ultimately, that people had decided to accede to India, and therefore ultimately Junagadh came to be a part of the United States of Kathiawar and ultimately came to be acceded to India. Otherwise, it had almost went to Pakistan, and there was an instrument of accession already signed by its ruler in favor of Pakistan. So very interestingly, by using a lot of statesmanship and also by avoiding the war and avoiding law and order situation, by using tact, Junagadh was ultimately acceded to India, and definitely a war was avoided in 1948 by Sardar Patel and his statesmanship and his team. So certainly it's a very interesting history development and how India became unified. And at that time, 29 total states had, India was a part of these 29 states. And later on, it became 28 and then 8 union territories. So this is how Junagadh became part of Dominion of India. But till date, in the map of Pakistan, Junagadh is shown as a territory of Pakistan.
Well, when you say, G, that till now they show Junagadh as a territory of Pakistan, but I think we should also tell the viewers that what has happened to the Nawab, who actually took a lot of his riches, and when he escaped to Pakistan, I would use this word carefully, but this is exactly how it looked like, that when there was uprising against going with Pakistan among the people who were the subjects, the Nawab actually escaped to safety of Pakistan, and then he willingly actually donated a lot of money to Pakistan government. And the irony of the situation is that had he be with us, then he would have flourished, and his family would have flourished because of the privy perks. But today we don't hear about none of his descendants. I think the money has been stolen, is misused completely. So we don't hear the legacy of Junagadh, which was such a rich state at one point in time, and we don't hear about them anymore. All his riches has been taken over by the Pakistani government. Don't you think this is very ironical?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, Pakistan also could not send important supplies to Junagadh at that time. But this Nawab of Junagadh, certainly it was a very rich state, was an eccentric person. and he was so much preoccupied with dogs that it is mentioned somewhere that he owned hundreds of dogs, and he also got them married, wherein he spent huge sum of money in honor of which he proclaimed a state holiday as well. So that was the nature of this Nawab of Junagadh, a little eccentric. And ultimately, yes, so therefore he suffered. And it is also mentioned in one of the books that he left his Begum behind because she was looking for his son who was not in the flight when he was flying away to Karachi. So he was
So
an
that
eccentric
means
person.
he escaped all alone. He didn't care about his family also. I think he was quite eccentric. You're right.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think one more thing I like to tell the viewers is that in terms of federalism, because we have been hearing this, especially this word called federalism is being used by politicians, but between Indians, between people, normal people like you and me, I don't think there is any feeling of federalism, because we are part of one country and we have we can go anywhere, we can buy property anywhere. But for whatever reason, the federalism is being used to divide people here. But I think the whole ethos of federalism is that the state government and the central government have to work together for the benefit of people, and that is the real cause of creating the system. And certain portfolios are with the central government and the local administration is with the state government. So I think that is how it has been running successfully for last 70 odd years, and it looks like it is even more stronger now, because the state and the center bonding is even more stronger now, so that it can flourish further. uh, but I think you mentioned in the beginning that we need to discuss about Jammu and Kashmir, and also a few other states like Hyderabad. So I think we will discuss about that in the next episode. But your narration about Junagadh was excellent. We got a lot of information of how really Gujarat got its name Gujarat, and how it got united with India.
Yes, Chandrakant, absolutely. It's very interesting. And especially today being the Gujarat Establishment Day. So I thought it fit to discuss this.
Excellent, Jeet, and thank you very much for finding time and coming out with this historic leaf from the history of our country. And hearty congratulations on the foundation year of Gujarat, because you're from Gujarat. So thank you so much once again, and we will catch up again next week in our next episode.
Thank you, Chandrakant, for having me. Thank you.
We have some unique Akulmek memorabilia which will make you look outstanding. The graphics on these corporate gifts are based on the global best business practices. To become recipient of one of these gifts for free, you have to watch this video till the end and provide your valuable comments. Or you can also share your experiences. The person who makes the best comment would be chosen to become a recipient of these beautiful Akulmak gift, absolutely free, delivered to your doorsteps. The winner would also get a chance to be invited live as a distinguished panelist during our next video. What are you waiting for, friends? Please subscribe Akulmak and smash that like button.